Steve Falcon Napier. Welcome to the Circle of Brilliance. Today we are going to continue and maybe finish up our discussion on curiosity. And so last time we spoke, we talked a lot about different angles of curiosity, how it interacts, how it comes into play, where it lives on the ChangeGrid, etc. I think we need to focus our energy today on how to make this a practical tool for working with our clients. So how does curiosity fit into our actual client work? And so I had a couple of scenarios I thought I'd throw out there and see how you guys might want to handle them. So what if you had a client and the thing they keep saying to you is, I'm stuck, or in their history of whatever's going on, they keep saying to you, I've tried this, nothing seems to be working, etc. So have you guys found ways of dealing with that situation, and how do those ways kind of resonate with this whole curiosity thought?
Well, if somebody's not curious, and I've certainly run into my share of not curious executives, I have a tendency to just spend time talking about themselves or letting them talk about themselves and how they get, trying to upgrade maneuver a little bit of awaken emotion, sense of pride, things like that.
Yeah, I like that. So does that include maybe asking them to share with you how they came to be in the position they're in or in the business that they're in? Because if they can see, well, curiosity has got me to where I am right now. Curiosity could definitely help me move forward from here. So I like that idea.
Yeah, I like what David was saying. What I look to do for the clinical research that I'm doing with patients is to use it as a form of empowerment. So like they come, to see a physician because they're not doing well, but I have to figure out like, what have you done? What are you interested in doing? Because like the continuity of care for me doesn't start until they actually go back home. And so I have no access to that. So I try to do something that's going to empower them. And that's where the curiosity comes in. So I have to get them interested enough that they're actually going to follow through.
And can you give us some kind of like specific technique or questions? What sorts of things might you say or do to help make sure they really are prepared to do it on their own?
We were trained in it's called motivational interview. I don't think I actually do it that well. I do like what David do. I do more listening than talking. But some of the questions that we ask is really getting us to understand what obstacles you might face. And I literally might ask that, like what obstacles you might face in terms of this treatment plan, just to see where they are in terms of their understanding of it. And then that way it helps me to use some kind of maneuver from there to get them where I think they should be in order to actually apply the information. Because most of the time when they come, by the time they reach me and have seen their primary care, they've already consulted Dr. Google.
Oh, yeah. Well, and that gets me to another little bullet point I wrote down here for us to explore, and that there is a dark side of curiosity. So what happens when curiosity leads you down entirely the wrong path or becomes a form of grand disruption and distraction from what's going on? And certainly Dr. Google is a great example of curiosity gone awry. So
they get overwhelmed at that point. And so they come with all this information. They have COVID because they've sneezed, they've coughed, and they have, they've done it all.
Yeah, because no one sneezes for any other reason these days.
Right.
Yeah. No, we have several friends who are in the medical industry, and they're always making jokes about Dr. Google. So, but that's the idea. Curiosity did that. Someone's having some sort of a symptom, a sensation, something they don't really understand, and so they've decided to go and explore. And at first, it's a very positive kind of a thing, because I'm glad people want to try to make themselves a bit aware or try to understand. But my goodness, within a few moments, you find out that everything is deadly and you've only got the worst possible sort of thing that could
Right.
that
Right.
could possibly be the case. And then
And
of
I know
course
the
that
physicians
triggers,
who are against it, but I'm not against it, the Dr. Google, because
yeah,
I that again as a question. I say, well, what did you research? What did you find? Let's talk about that. So
sure,
again,
sure,
I can
sure.
help them understand the information, and that's helpful for me as I see it.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and I think as long as it doesn't cross the line into triggering anxiety responses, or in the old days they would call it hypochondria, but now I think they're just calling it some sort of like medically related anxiety, health anxiety, those sorts of things, then it's all good. But if
Right.
the act of curiosity becomes a debilitating factor, well, now we got to intervene.
Right.
Yep, yep, yep. Okay, other comments you guys want to throw out about either how you're using curiosity as a tool in your dialogues with your clients, or even if you want to talk about the dark side of curiosity? Hmm?
Well, frankly, T, I use curiosity all the time. Especially with Zoom, you don't have the physical cues, you don't have the surroundings to draw from. So curiosity seems to be the most effective tool at getting people to open up right now.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So, why do you think that is? Why is curiosity such an effective way of getting people to open up? This is for everybody.
It just
Why?
seems like a friendly way to approach it, to say something, I'm curious about.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's inviting, it's friendly, it's collegial.
Yes.
It's not going to raise relationship tension.
There you go. And I think that's really one of the most important roles that curiosity plays in the work that we do, because curiosity tends to be non-threatening. So we don't have to worry about it triggering anyone's defense mechanisms. We don't have to worry. If you guys remember to your back to your basic training in the nature of change, we talk about how the vast majority of the population is suffering from one level or another of dysfunction. And so this dysfunction, their greatest fear is being exposed. And so they create all kinds of facades. And if we're going to do the work that we do to the best of our ability, we need to interact with the genuine client, not with this facade that the client is projecting in hopes of protecting themselves from some threat. I mean, we're not there to be a threat. There's no reason for them to defend themselves. And certainly being curious about something is a very gentle way to allow them I want to say, the freedom to disclose whatever they're comfortable disclosing at that point in time. And hopefully, as they see us honor what they've disclosed, they feel comfortable disclosing something even deeper. Um, and I think that's why it's vitally important, in all the coach training, it's always talking about asking good questions, asking good questions. Well, is that the foundation of curiosity? Um, yeah. Thoughts about that?
It is.
Yeah. And I guess that's different than when we say directed questioning, where I've got a line of questioning that hopefully will lead to a particular destination. I think that's different than curiosity, because curiosity, we would at least like to think we don't know where it's going to lead, but hopefully
I use
someplace.
curiosity greatly in the interviewing process. When I begin the selection interview, I tell the candidate, or ask the candidate, to spend about 45 minutes just sharing about their background, their history, their accomplishments, their challenges, what they've learned, what they've know, what they've come to know, and it's all just basic curiosity, and it's wide angled and open ended. So what you end up hearing is not only important information, but what they consider to be the most important
That's
information.
right. That's right. Again, tension management is always in play. So as they're freely sharing, there's a reason why whatever they're sharing is top of mind. So there's something there in terms of tension that has made it, when I say significant enough, important enough, memorable enough that it's even available for them to share. So, all right. So I like this idea. Let's talk a little bit more about the dark side of curiosity. How many of you have ever personally experienced in your own life or in your professional life, what happens when someone lets curiosity get out of control?
Hmm.
Yeah. And I'll give you guys a little bit of a hint, unless someone's got something ready they want to throw out. Okay, it has to do with getting stuck in power. So how could curiosity have a dark side that resonates with getting stuck in power, or that manifests itself as being stuck in power?
Hmm.
Hmm. All right,
Well,
so yeah, go ahead, David.
maybe by not allowing for a natural elevation of tension,
Mm-hmm.
maybe holding someone at power
Yeah.
when every indication is that they want to proceed along a path, and you just leave them there.
Yep. So something then is happening that is moving the person's level of tension back down into power anytime something starts to move it up grid. And I can think of at least a couple of ways that could happen. Joseph, you have your hand up. You're welcome to just share openly whatever you'd like to throw in.
Well, hello, my friends.
Hi there.
I was not sure if it's on the right track, but I just wanted to throw it in. I used to have a magazine, and we interviewed terrorists, so people who were fighting in Syria.
Mm-hmm.
So I could think that this was the dark side of curiosity, when you're not sure if you're in danger yourself interviewing these people. But I thought it was out of your.
Yeah, no, that's a great, that's a wonderful thing to throw into the discussion. When you start, looking into things you really shouldn't be looking into and asking questions
exactly
you're going to regret asking. You know too much. You've seen too much.
So curiosity killed the cat, right?
It can. That's why I'm always, we watch, lots of movies, and how often do you watch a movie and someone hears a sound off in the, down the hall somewhere, they decide to walk toward the sound. Yep. And it's like, in what world is that a survival instinct? Oh, did you just hear a gunshot? Let's go look. It's like, no.
Well, it is. When you hear a shot, then you want to know.
Well, you really do, because obviously it does. There is a primal thing that's being kicked into place there, but sometimes you do shake your head about the logic.
I'm afraid I'm throwing you off track.
So. No. I thought that was a very good thing to throw in there, because it does demonstrate the dark side of curiosity. So there's lots of phrases that we use, like sticking our nose where it doesn't belong. You just kind of like being a busybody, whatever. All these things are when curiosity gets out of control. And whether we're talking about the nosy neighbors who are watching every move everybody makes, or we're talking about something far more sinister, there's going to be a dark side to curiosity. The one that I had in mind was about people getting stuck in power, where they, in power, how much information does someone in power want to gather?
As much as they can.
As much as they can, as much as there is. But very rarely do we need to have all of the information that could be available in order to make a high quality decision and move forward. So instead of just saying, there's one word. Remember I said we want change occurs when someone finally says, and there was enough. So I don't want all the information. I just need enough information. And if I get stuck in one of these curiosity rabbit holes, I could just be gathering information far beyond that which is useful to the decision that needs to be made. I mean, it could be a very intellectually stimulating kind of thing if I'm more about that down grid kind of curiosity where we're gathering information just because we're looking for that level of expertise or whatever. But if we're talking being in power, the curiosity can sometimes interfere with people making whatever decision needs to be made in a timely kind of way. I mean, how often have we all encountered clients who have a tendency to get important issues stuck in committee? So,
Mm.
because everyone wants to study it more and everyone wants to gather more information, and everyone wants to, it's like, really, people, is that the best use of our time? Do we not have enough information? So, now,
Hey, Steve?
yes, go right ahead.
Yeah, this is Tim. And I'm thinking that that dark side of curiosity could also speak to the negative outcome. And perhaps at times there's a desire to get that information, but for, for reasons that are not productive.
Yeah, right. And again, that could end up one of the tools someone could use who has a desired outcome different than what everyone else would like to have, may choose to explore lines of questioning or paths of curiosity that would open up awareness of, understanding of another viewpoint. And that could undermine whoever really was hoping to move things forward. And I'm sure we can think of a lot of situations. In fact, I'm reminded of an exercise that we did years and years and years ago, demonstrating the power of questions. And in this exercise, I'm sure I've shared this with many of you guys before, we divided the room into two sides, and we asked the sides to each pair up, and we gave each side a little piece of paper that had their objective, gave the scenario and the objective. The scenario was that their client is someone who is in a relationship that is at a crossroads. They're considering divorce, they're considering ending whatever the relationship happens to be. And their goal is, just by asking questions alone, to get that person to want to reconcile. And the other side of the room was said that their goal was to get the person to end the relationship, get the divorce to happen. And again, they could only ask questions. And at the end of this exercise, the big aha is that both sides were 100% successful at influencing the person that was their supposed client, purely by asking them questions. And so we were trying to demonstrate that unless you, as the person who is in the role of the professional, can practice the art of caring detachment, you too may have an opinion about something, an agenda about something, your own value system, and that's going to, in turn, impact the kinds of questions and the order of questions, et cetera, that you might choose to ask somebody. So it was all about neutrality. What happens if you can actually achieve a state of neutrality? And, in the debrief, it was all about how many of you were aware that you had this power to steer anybody in any direction just by asking them questions if you have an agenda. So thoughts about that? Have you guys experienced an exercise like that or done something like that?
No.
No, it's both, it's very powerful, but it's also very terrifying, because you start to realize that anyone who is in a position where they get to pose questions, the questions don't even have to be answered. You can just throw the question out to whoever the audience happens to be. And through that sequence of questioning, it's amazing what you can do to steer people. So finding a truly objective facilitator, a truly objective mediator, moderator, whatever, it's not as easy as one might hope, because it's tough work to remain 100% detached from whatever it is the person's experiencing.
So true.
Yeah. Okay. And again, this is a big deal, particularly those of you that are in your role of coaching, because you really are just supposed to be that that voice of objectivity, or no agenda, no real, other than helping the client make whatever their own best decision happens to be. But yeah. So all right.
So what you
Now,
described with the person that's stuck in power,
yeah.
I was just thinking about they could be overwhelmed with the information that they're actually taking on. That could lead to curiosity being on the dark side.
Mhm.
So I remember some research I was reading, I think it was an NYU professor, and his research on procrastination. And he said oftentimes it's misconstrued as the person being lazy when in fact it starts with overwhelm. Like they just have too much information most of the time and can't decide.
Mhm, mhm, mhm. Interesting. I'm going to write that down because since I've got this slide up on screen right now, I want to talk about procrastination, but I want to finish that thought about people being stuck in power. So what are the characteristics of someone who's stuck in power? That's a quiz question for everybody. So unmute, chime in. What are some of the characteristics of being in power?
Curious.
You are very curious. You're in the phrase you learned was you are in an aggressive
Information gathering
mode. This is exactly right. Exactly right. And so you are on a quest. Well, unless you at the individual level, or unless the committee has some sort of deadline, some sort of expectation that's been placed upon them to reach consensus or reach a decision, how long could that process of being in power take?
Forever.
It can go on forever. It can go on forever. So, yeah. Now, let's talk briefly about procrastination. Where on the change grid might we encounter a person procrastinating? Where on their change grid might we encounter a person procrastinating?
down grid.
Yeah.
Down grid. Okay, down grid. It's also a bit of a trick question. So I'm curious to know how many of you ever jump out of bed in the morning and go, today I'm going to procrastinate about this, this, and this. You know, do you ever, is deciding to procrastinate a conscious decision that you make utilizing that label? See, I think procrastination is a judgment that is imposed upon someone's behavior by a person outside of them.
That's
So
good.
your behavior is being judged as procrastination, but no one knows why you haven't done it. You guys are absolutely right. If we're not going to do something, someone wants to call that procrastinating, but if we're not going to get around to doing something, it's probably going to either be something, I'll say more often than not, it's going to be something that's down grid. It could be something that's up grid, but that's a different sort of a rationale. So yeah, Joseph, go right ahead. Share what you like to share.
Yeah, you were just, this is Joseph. You were just saying what I wanted to ask, because I use this for people who have fear of cold calling.
Mm-hmm, yep.
So, and I figured that most of the time they are stressed out. So that might feel like procrastination, like fleeing the activity. So
right, creative avoidance, and many people in management and training would even label that behavior as being procrastination. Yeah. Where the truth is they're saying, I don't have the ability and I find this extremely challenging.
Yeah.
So if I'm just going to procrastinate, well, what's the answer when someone's procrastinating? We've just said, just do it. And that doesn't change the fact that the person who's up grid does not know how to do it. and fears that they're up grid. Yeah.
Their critical ability missing.
Exactly. And if nothing else, ability is knowledge, skill, and experience. Fine, they've gone through the training. They know what they need to say. Skill-wise, they can say the words, but they don't have the experience. So they need something more like a structured exercise, where I'm sitting down next to someone who's on the phone and I say, all right, let's make a call. And I've done plenty of those where I would say to someone, I've got a list of 100 prospects. I'd like you to tell me who on this list is the least likely to want to buy your services. And they would choose that because, well, there's no way this person will do it. Great, let's call them first. because we want you to get the experience of delivering the message. And if you know they're not going to be interested, you're not going to feel rejected because you knew it going into it. Now, if we can work our way backwards to that list so that the last 10 we call are the 10 best prospects I could recognize on that list, I should have my spiel together pretty well by then. And I should have become numb to whatever the rejection is that's going on. So there's ways around that, but that means I have to do something in my role as a trainer to help that person increase. Yes, there's still knowledge is always going up, skill is always getting better, but that experience piece, that'll help it feel, not foreign to them. And simultaneously, that should also be influencing their perceived level of challenge. Should also be going down a little bit. So we have to do that. All right. So I don't know that someone who's up in stress can be legitimately labeled as procrastinating. Yeah, they're avoiding it, but they're avoiding it with good reason. And so I don't think they're procrastinating. Now, we talked about power. Do people in power procrastinate? Well, usually procrastination is an avoidance behavior. And the people who are stuck in power aren't avoiding it. They're like too deep into it. So if anything, you just want to say to them, enough already, let's change the task a little bit. Let's put a different task on here. Because this one you're doing extremely well. But as you guys have already observed, it's the people that are downgraded who are going like, I can really do it. That's no problem. The challenge is simply not there. I can go through the motions. I just don't feel like doing this. So I'm avoiding something that I believe will be, I don't know, boring at the very best, but it doesn't threaten me in any kind of way. I just don't really feel like doing it. Well, to me, that's what procrastination really is. Now, if someone wants to come along and label my behavior as procrastination, I would say to them, that's your value judgment that you are imposing on my reality. I got my reasons why I don't want to do it. I don't want to do it because I think it's pointless. I don't want to do it because I don't think it needs to be done. I don't want to do it because it is something that is, I don't want to say beneath me, but that's what came to me. It's like, I've already been there, done that. Is there no one else who could have this as a developmental experience? I mean, I've got my different reasons. I'm not procrastinating as an active choice. So yeah, anyway, I've yammered enough.
What's the role of importance in this?
Well, again, if it's something that's really important to me and I'm downgrid about it, what's the likelihood that I'll follow through and do it compared to an activity that is low importance and low on my ChangeGrid?
Yeah, it's not going to get.
I mean, the low importance stuff is far less likely to get done, period. I don't care where you are on the ChangeGrid.
Yeah.
As importance, as importance increases, we come more and more to the top surface of that change cube. And so it may very well be that if a task is important enough, I don't care if you're in stress or apathy, you'll do it because it's important enough that it has to get done. So yeah, can you guys think about plenty of things that you're downgrid about? Absolutely, for sure, you're downgrid about them, but they're important enough. They got to get done. So I'll do it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Do I need to ask you guys for examples?
Yeah.
Okay. I can give you.
We're procrastinating on answering.
Well, because I can give you. Yeah, there you exactly right. Exactly.
I was thinking from like the example you used. No one wake up in the morning and say, "Hey, today would be a great day to procrastinate." So I'm thinking like health behaviors. I try to figure out like why people won't do things to take care of their own health, like be an active agent in it, although you're actually experiencing pain in your body, right? Mm-hmm, but you won't go figure out what's going on. Like you got it. You just do the next best thing, which is like take an aspirin or whatever you might want to do.
Yep.
That's an interesting dilemma for me that I try to understand.
Well, it's about pain on the balance. So there's pain involved with staying the way you are, but there's also pain involved in change.
Right.
It's only
Right.
when the pain that is involved in staying the way you are exceeds the pain of change that change is likely to occur. So, and I forget who wrote it. Is it Anais Nin? Anais Nin? Who wrote
Yeah.
the name? That's like a
Yeah.
quote from some greeting card I got from somebody that had that on that. It says, and the day came when the pain of staying, I don't remember, staying a bud became greater than the pain of blossoming. It was something profound like that.
Right.
But it was all about growth. It's all about there is pain and change. So maybe that's what it is. The fact is while they have enough tension to bellyache about whatever is going on, they don't have enough pain to bother doing those things that would actually alleviate that pain. Joseph, feel free. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a great story from Les Brown.
Yep.
We lost
Joseph, we
them.
just lost you. You're not on my list. Come back. Yes, we've lost the Netherlands.
Hey, T, on that importance comment, what came to mind for me was about a month before my birthday every year, the state sends me a reminder that it's time to renew my auto tag.
Oh, there you go. Yeah.
And I always pledge that I'm going to do it. And for some reason, it doesn't get done until the day of my birthday.
There it is. There it is. And, that's a great example. It's anything like that. Like, okay, like doing the laundry. Okay, fine. I get it. I got to do the laundry.
Cleaning
I'm
the
kind of,
house.
yeah, right. Yeah. But it's only when I run out of whatever. Okay, I got to go to the grocery store. Okay, got to mow the lawn. Got to whatever these like routine activities of daily living happen to be. So they become important enough sooner or later that that importance will actually trump whatever the level of tension is you have around it. But if there's no importance, like if I got a lifetime supply of Ellen underwear, that may very well change my whole attitude about doing laundry. So, who knows? So these things like checking your email. How many of you have, you decide I'm going to sit down and clear my email. And if you're like me, you see all these emails that have arrived overnight and you just quickly scan down them all to see if any of them really require your attention. And the rest of them you leave as unmarked. Well, sooner or later, you end up with hundreds upon hundreds of unmarked emails. And you go, I got to go clear this clutter out of this to me is one of those relatively unimportant downgrade tasks that sooner or later become something that you deem worth doing. Yep. Okay, so let's see what else I want to say. Getting stuck in power, being down in apathy, procrastination. Okay, curiosity as a tool for observation. So I'm going to give you guys another little bit of a scenario. And now what's happening is you've got someone who is in the center of their change grid. And they are experiencing that moment in some aspect of their life where they're fully observant. They see everything that's going on. They are they are gathering all of the information that's available to them all around them, but they are doing nothing. So how do you get someone who is stuck in an observational mode to get into motion? So this becomes now, how do we use curiosity as a tool for movement?
Well, I still like the upgrade maneuvers, change the task, raise the standards with a little bit of curiosity infused. I really believe in those upgrade maneuvers.
Yeah. And I think that's a great way to kind of encapsulate the scenario that I had in mind, because I was thinking about how do parents deal with a bored child? So isn't it often the case that you go, all right, well, tell me what it is that you see. Now go deeper. What could that mean? What else do you see? What's underneath that? Something to actually say, take these observational skills and just go deeper. Or take these observational skills and see what story you believe what you're observing could actually be telling. What are the possibilities? Any of those kinds of exercises is an exercise in triggering curiosity. Oh, yay, Joseph's back. Let me go ahead and click here. Okay, Joseph, welcome back.
Well, excuse me because my battery died.
we figured something happened. So some satellite went out circling the planet. There you go. So Joseph, you were saying something when we when this was all.
Yeah, well, it's just an example. So Les Brown tells this story about a dog lying on the floor, and he is moaning all the time. And then the friend of the house is asking, why is the dog moaning? And the owner says, well, it's because he's lying on a nail that hurts him. So the friend asked him, why doesn't he stand up? So the owner says, well, that's because it doesn't hurt him enough.
There it is. No, this is a great example. Great story. Yeah, Les has lots of good stories. So, so I think that's what we're talking about. We have to find the current situation troublesome enough. I mean, to put it into our ChangeWorks terms, the dog was not at their threshold of activation. Or whoever it is that's complaining about their health but not doing it, they're not at their threshold of activation. Truth be told, they do not find their current situation troublesome enough to bother doing anything definitive to change it. And until that happens, until they reach that threshold, they could very well continue status quo for an indefinite period of time. All right, so let's just kind of recap. So one of the things that we do to use curiosity with our clients is in order to diffuse whatever upgrade emotional energy they might be experiencing about a situation. So this would hold true whether there is just a conflict that they're sharing with us privately, or we are part of a meeting where there's something very, a contest kind of going on, or maybe this is, at a much bigger kind of a level. Now we're mediating something or whatever the case may be. By not only us being curious, but by encouraging them to be curious as well, and approaching one another from a perspective, from a position of curiosity, what's happening to overall tension management. Okay, we've got two things that are happening if we take the curiosity kind of approach. So,
well, it seems interesting to me that curiosity can aim in multiple directions.
yes.
Curiosity can be an upgrid, can be an outgrid, it can be a downgrid, could be an ingrid, type of a exercise. So, we need to have a plan first.
Right. So based on where they are on the change grid and where we think they would be better served on the change grid, that could very much impact the form that our curiosity exercise might take. So, for example, if they're too far down grid, we do characterize people that are down grid as having untapped potential, unfulfilled dreams, unmet missions, where's their vision? So if we can get curious to know about, well, what would the next generation look like in terms of that vision or that mission or that purpose or that whatever, that is a very different question that would be designed to raise someone's level of tension, because it's, if nothing else, awakening some emotions and changing the task enough to get some tension going up. Where if they're upgrade and they're in conflict, by taking that position of curiosity, we know they feel less threatened if the threat doesn't go away altogether, because I'm not attacking them. I'm seeking to learn and to understand. And so the other thing that's happening is that we're all gaining greater levels of information. Curiosity is always going to reveal some new content. And maybe, just maybe, that curiosity is going to also reveal some logic that we had not thought about. So going back to sales training and some of the basic principles in tension management, we say that anytime you encounter resistance, we know that people are not resistant to something. We know they're resistant to something else. So what's the resistance all about? Can you guys fill in what the somethings are?
Yeah, losing control.
Yeah, they're resistant to losing control. They're not resistant to change. They're resistant to losing control. And so how might I apply a little bit of curiosity in that moment that may very well change their perspective or change my perspective as the person who's trying to influence them?
I think it's more of a downgrade approach, curiosity around problems they've experienced in the past that they've overcome, rebuilding a little bit of sense of pride and ability. And so that's the direction I would head.
Yeah. And so what we're basically doing is one way or another asking the question, you know, I'm not going to say this directly to them. Who knows? Maybe I would. Well, obviously, you think you're going to lose control by doing what I'm recommending. In what ways do you think you'd lose control, or have you lost control? I mean, I'm not going to phrase it that way, but that's the essence of what we're trying to get to. Obviously, you think you're going to lose control by doing what we're recommending. In what ways do you think you would end up losing control? Now, they may very well realize that it's just a defense mechanism that's come into play that is no longer necessary. So they are continuing to defend themselves against a threat that no longer exists. And so they could let it down. You know, they don't need to be protecting themselves anymore. But they may very well share something with you as the person who's trying to influence them that you hadn't thought about. And lo and behold, they're right. They might lose control over something very important to them that that we need to factor in. That's why it's so important to fill out those 4 quadrants on that control exercise, the 4 aspects of control, because we always think, oh, they're going to gain, they're going to gain, they're going to gain. Yeah, but there's a price to be paid. And it may very well be that that price is far greater than they would want to risk. So we could learn something as well. And so again, I do believe that curiosity can be a very effective tool for anytime we need to reduce the emotional energy that's around a situation. Curiosity can also be used to remobilize people that are too far down grid. Curiosity can be used to move someone who is in power a bit further out grid. So I'm sending them on a quest, sending them on a mission. And so I can see how I can do that. But at some point in time, I would like to transfer this awareness of and utilization of curiosity as a technique to the individual so they can self-apply. So how might we do that? What might we say to them to get them to now adopt curiosity as their own device?
Well, it's a directed curiosity. It's you explain like a doctor should when they're treating you. You know, you explain why you're there, what you're doing, what you're looking at, what you're looking for. And as you guide them through that curiosity, you're also instructing them on how to replicate it.
Yes, exactly right. Yep, good. Brian, Joseph?
Yep, Joseph here.
Yep.
Well, whenever I'm trying to solve my own problems, I just write down a series of questions that I need to answer. So I'm raising my own curiosity around the subject that I study.
Right, putting some shape to it.
Yeah, I do the same thing. I ask myself, you know, I keep the journal, so I always ask myself, how can I grow from this particular activity, and what do I need to develop, and what do I need to understand at a high level or at a better level than where I am? Those are 3 questions I ask all the time.
You know, and I think, Brian, you're going to say this, this matches what I'm going to remind everyone about the Bufflin maneuver. Do you remember we did neurotransmitters, what the Bufflin maneuver was? So remember, Diane is a clinical psychologist, and so she's dealing with lots of individual patients, and she has something she asks them to do whenever they are in a heightened emotional state that doesn't seem to be serving them particularly well in that moment. Does anyone remember what she has them ask themselves or say to themselves?
I forgot.
It's worth
interesting.
it?
Isn't that interesting? Isn't that interesting? And so when you just consciously say to yourself, again, you're in an emotionally charged state, and you go, isn't that interesting? Aren't my feelings interesting? Isn't it interesting that I'm feeling this way? What is happening as far as movement in the area of your brain that's being utilized? Or
Well, you start to get some perspective. I mean, you kind of
Mhm.
move out of it yourself and you're looking at it
Mhm.
from the outside.
Exactly. The first thing that question does is it detaches you from
Yeah.
whatever it is that you're feeling. You are now an observer of your own attitudes, beliefs, behaviors, feelings, etc., instead of just someone who's in the throes of feeling that. What else is happening, Brian, from the brain perspective?
You move out of the limbic system into the more cognitive, so you
Yep.
can really shape it consciously, because the limbic system is more unconscious processing.
Yep. And so it's as David was saying, it's triggering more of the logic sorts of pieces. We need to get out of it to understand it, and I think that's what's really going on. So is that not also an act of curiosity when you just say, isn't that interesting?
Yes.
Mhm.
How does me feeling this way serve me well? How does
Mm.
this serve me poorly? What do I gain or lose as a result of being in this emotional sort of phase, or emotional sort of place? You know, Diane will be the first to tell you, we all have these emotions because under certain circumstances, they're very valuable to us. It's when you
Mhm.
get trapped by them that you go like, all right, what? Joseph, your hand's up.
Yeah, I wanted to add, you can ask in this emotional state, you can ask two types of questions. You could ask yourself, isn't that interesting? Or how does that serve me?
Mhm.
So you're moving into the factual realm. But you can also, and most of the time people do that, they ask themselves, why am I feeling this? Why why me? Like,
Well, right, yeah.
like, and then you're looking for emotions, and
Yeah.
that will increase the level of tension.
Exactly, because if you ask yourself that question while you're in the limbic kind of mode, I promise you your limbic system is going to find all sorts of storyline to add to whatever the craziness is.
So it's going to enforce the, like, worrying about the worrying.
That's right. And that's why, you know, that the whole, I call the Buffalo maneuver, it's a pattern interrupt. It's saying, okay, we've been feeling what we've been feeling long enough, no judgment, but we've been feeling it plenty. Let's go back up into our cognitive mind and see what this is really all about. See what we can do. See what we can do to move forward, or whatever the case at hand happens to be. All right. So I would then say to you that curiosity is a way of moving your utilization of different areas of the brain. Now, so far we've only talked about two of them. Brian could probably tell us things we could do to trigger other parts of the brain to become front and center. But it's a question, a curiosity could be all that it takes to move us in that direction.
Mhm.
Other questions, thoughts about that particular aspect of curiosity? All right.
I
Then,
love it. Love
yeah,
it.
yeah. Then I had one more for you, and this is curiosity as a container. Oh, and very good. Denise just typed over. What about curiosity in the body? Denise, go ahead and unmute if you can, and yeah, share with us what you're thinking about there.
Well, so what I'm thinking is, how do you feel? Where is that hitting you in your body that you notice that something's changed? So let them use their body as the place to discover more information.
Can you give us kind of an example of that? And so if, for example, someone has experienced a great loss and they are talking about it, would you ask them where they feel that in their body?
Yep, something like that. Yep.
So if I said, well, I really feel it all across my lower back,
Right.
what might that end up meaning? Yeah.
Well, I wouldn't be qualified to tell them what that means, but I would ask them to go through the process of tell me what that feels like. And
Mm-hmm.
expand it, or then allow them to go into it and then let them take themselves out of something like that.
And I think what she just described is quite important, because we do experience things in our body first before we actually rationalize it. And that's what the whole idea of the buffering technique, I think, is great, because oftentimes through the somatic nervous system, which is part of the autonomous nervous system, something triggers and we experience it in our body, and then we'll try to figure out as to what's going on. But something literally for every thought we have, the somatic nervous system picks that up. So like sometimes when people get angry, they're start to shake, or they might start to get teary-eyed or something like that. That's the somatic nervous system. And so if you don't understand these things that are happening in your body, what's going on in the environment internally, or what's going on externally around you, then you can't really shape it to move in a direction that will best help you. So I think that's quite important. You might not be able to necessarily convey, okay, well, it's happening in this part of my body, but certainly to move the experience directionally becomes important.
Yeah. When I was going through my training in massage school, we did do quite a long section about where discomfort, pain, tightness, whatever is experienced in the body and what that might lead to. And we were trained to ask certain questions. And so that's why I brought up the thing about the lower back, because the lower back was supposed to be an indication of a problem with stability. And so you would actually ask the person, well, tell me a little bit about the back pain. Tell me a story about the back pain. And we would not be surprised to hear them talk about a support issue or something like that. And if it's in your arms, it's about control. And if it's in your legs, it's about movement and all that sort of stuff. I forget all of it now, but it was all very interesting because they too believed that every unresolved issue in your life is going to be stored somewhere in your body. And everyone thinks, oh, those are memories. They only get stored in your brain. No. Your brain decides to store it in your elbow. It decides to store it wherever it wants to store it. And sometimes by massaging that area, you are awakening those feelings again. And so it isn't like curiosity, like we've been describing up to it right now, but it's a very curious thing to recognize what people start to talk about or what they start to do.
Yeah. Helen Hayes is a good resource on that kind of stuff, of where pain is and what it reflects.
Yes.
And also the chakras come into play here too.
Yes,
For example, if you lose your voice, it's the throat chakra. And I've had personal experience with that. It's amazing how it does centralize. But there's one other thing that I'll just give you an example. There was a football player, last play of the game, senior in high school, had a tremendous scholarship and got injured, and he lost everything. Didn't go to college. Parents couldn't give, there was no other alternative. He limped for his entire life until they released the emotion associated with that injury. Yep. And he immediately could walk again. So it'll get localized by an event as well. I just had to get that.
No, it's absolutely true. And the thing is that if a long time of limping occurs, well, then the body is also going to be adjusting as though the limp had some sort of true physical cause. But if it's really just a manifestation of an unresolved emotional experience, then this idea about eliminating that is a great thing. In Hawaiian traditions, there's something called uonaponapona, which is the severing of ties. They believe that every unresolved issue has the equivalent of an umbilical cord connected from your solar plexus to whatever it is. And Ho'oponopono is this severing of those ties to release that energy to be able to reclaim it for yourself. I'm sharing that just because I think it's very interesting when we can say, hey, this thing that we know about because of brain theory, it's actually present in massage. Oh, no, it's actually present in meditation. Oh, no, the same thing's talked about in Hawaiian folklore. This is why I love this idea about the circle of brilliance. These insights and understandings occur to many different people from many different walks of life through many different angles. And rather than judging one or the other, it's just great to explore them all. Ooh, is that curiosity? And then let it all kind of come together. The last thing I just want to throw, we only have a few minutes left, but I just want to talk about the other way that curiosity is defined in the dictionary. And that is, rather than being defined as a process or as a verb sort of a thing, it's defined as an actual noun, a curiosity. So this is why we have curio cabinets. This is why we collect things. And it can also be even like a scar you might have somewhere. That becomes its own bit of a curiosity, its own curio, if you will. It is a container that a lot of experience, a lot of emotion, a lot of meaning ends up getting attached to. And so I think that if we are working with a client in the client's environment, they tend to be surrounded by these curios, these curiosities. And when we start to ask questions about some of those curiosities, it's amazing what we can actually learn about another person. So we learn about their values, we learn about their beliefs, we learn about their experiences. It's pretty amazing. So I don't want you guys to just think that curiosity is some sort of a mental process, or that it actually ends up taking the form of a container. And whether that container is in your body, where you're holding back some unresolved sort of issue, or whether it's an object that you hold near and dear. These are still things that are very, very important. So how many of you, if I said, how many of you have got something you would say is your most prized possession? Can't be another human, actually has to be an object. How many of you have got something you would go like, oh no, that is my most prized possession? Yeah, very powerful curiosa, thank you. Yeah, how many of you have got something you would say that?
Journals that I've kept for over the years. I've been journaling since I was 14 as a way of connecting with myself and my body since I was a preemie baby.
Yeah, yeah.
And so, but I can look back on these journals and it's always interesting to do so because I say, oh, wow, who is this person? I used to think like that.
Yeah. Linda's always been a journalist. And so, so if there was a fire or a flood and everyone is safe and you can get out safely, what's that one thing you're going to grab? And in the old days, it was going to be photo albums, but most of that has now been, something that's been, put up into more of a virtual sort of a form. But journaling is about pen on paper for most people. They still want to physically write. So those journals. Joseph is saying, talk about that picture on your desk. These are the kinds of things, but sometimes it's also the weirdest thing. My most prized possession is a cookie jar. And you guys have probably heard the cookie jar story, but I'll tell it very quickly. So this is a regular, old-fashioned, mid-century modern cookie jar. It looks like a beehive, and on top of the beehive, there's this little bunny, a little cat that's sitting. And so I tell people, this is my most prized possession. And I tell them the story. When I was a little boy, my family and I owned a cookie jar. But the cookie jar was a really lousy cookie jar. The lid didn't fit very well. And so the cookies always got stale. And so we kept crayons in it instead. Well, the day came along, I was 9 or 10 years old, and the neighbor gal across the street, her daughter was getting married. And so everybody got together a few things, gave them to her so she could start her household. Among the things my mom gave her was this cookie jar. Well, we were living in Detroit at the time. Well, now years later, we've moved umpteen times. Everybody's moved. Everyone's move. And it's just before my 30th birthday, and I'm out with my friend Mary Ann, and we go into a resale shop called Treasure Mart. And up on a shelf, I see a cookie jar. And I said, Mary Ann, when I was a little boy, I had a cookie jar that looked just like that one. And to tell her the whole story. And that was that. Well, a couple of days later, it's my birthday party. I open up my present from Mary Ann and I pull out this cookie jar. And I'm telling everybody at the party, this is, you know, I had a cookie jar look just like this when I was a little kid, and tell them the whole story. And then I took the lid off of the cookie jar and the smell of crayons was overwhelming.
Wow.
And my cookie jar came back to me.
Wow.
And so to this day, it is my most prized possession. And I don't know why it came back to me, but then it also has a little chip on the interior lip. And I remembered that chip being there. But to this day, it's sitting on a shelf here. And if I take the lid off of it, here it is, 50 years later, the smell of crayons is overwhelming.
Wow.
Interesting.
Isn't it? So that's, for me, that's the most curious thing I have, is this strange little cookie jar. There you go. Okay, anywho, that's my thought. So these things encapsulate feelings and special emotions and all that sort of a thing. And so I was just going to finish by saying, when you've got someone who has a curiosity, they may not even realize why that object is important to them. And so I think a great inventory for people to have is to look at the things that they've collected and just stop for a moment, look at it, hold it, and become curious about your relationship with that object. And who knows? You might do, who's the Japanese gal that tells us all to wish our things, you know, best, let them go? Kondra, I forget what her last name is, but yeah, it's that same sort of a thing. For a moment, honor it, and then decide if it's something that brings you joy, continues to bring you joy, or if it's something that you're ready to release. And off you go. Okay, anyway, so that's been our discussion on curiosity. I hope you guys have found it curious at the very least. And we're going to have another subject for you on Thursday. I'll give you a hint. We're going to be looking at a group profile of some almost 250 people who have provided feedback on one specific question. And we're going to see what you guys might glean from looking at a group profile with some 250 people in it. We'll give you more information on that when we get together. Okay, so with that, thanks all very much for joining in, and we'll talk to you again very soon. Bye for now, everybody.
Thank you.